Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of What If Belle Was Sinbad's Reincarnation. Also check out the playlist that I have created on this channel. But I hope you guys enjoy. So this is a dungeon. Honestly, I expected more of a challenge from this, but I am on floor 5, so I guess it makes sense. Maybe I should go into the middle floors, but that's when he noticed some adventurers running away from something and he glanced at his side and noticed a minotaur rushing towards him. Well, this should be fun. He pulled out his sword and rushed towards the monster. The two met in front of one another and Belle swung his blade at the neck of the monster, but as his blade was going to connect, the minotaur dodged out of the way and swiped at Belle, which caused the boy to fall back a bit, but he landed on his feet and grinned at the beast. Well, let's see if you can handle this. He pointed his blade at the monster, and on the side of the blade you could see something light up and lightning appeared around his blade. Bararaku. The lighting completely disintegrated the monster and Belle looked at the core that fell down. He was confused, but he just sighed. Well, my goddess told me this is what is used to trade for money, huh? He bent down and picked up the crystal and he turned around. You can come out now, no point in hiding. As he finished saying this, a blonde-haired girl walked out of the shadows and looked at him a bit surprised. She introduced herself. Hello, I'm Ace Wallenstein. Sorry for spying on you like that. I thought you would need my help. And my name is Belle. Nice to meet you. He then walked away from the girl, but she tried to say something, however Belle was already gone. She sighed and decided to check if any other minotaurs came down to the upper floors. Back with the purple-haired boy. Yes, instead of white hair, he is going to have purple hair like Sinbad. He made his way up to floor 9 and noticed a high-level party. They seemed like they were hunting those minotaurs. That's probably why there was one on floor 5, he muttered, but he walked past the party and one of the members noticed Belle and she looked over at Finn and got his attention. He looked at the elf and spoke, "What is it, Riveria?" And that's when he noticed that her gaze was on Belle. Wait, is he trying to go to the middle floors by himself? Finn got up and started to walk over to our protagonist. When he got closer to him, that's when he spoke, "I don't think it's a good idea for you to go to the middle floors right now, and even more so when you're by yourself." He then continued, "There was minotaurs that came down from the middle floors onto the upper floors." Belle glanced at him. "Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to the middle floors just yet, but yeah, I ran into one of those when I was on floor 5. Finn took in the boy's appearance, also noting how young he looked. "I don't think I've heard of you. What familia are you in?" "Ah yeah, I came to Orario not too long ago, and I was fortunate enough to meet a goddess." He looked at Finn and narrowed his eyes. "I'm from the Hestia familia, and which one are you from?" Finn looked at him surprised. "I am from the Loki familia. I'm surprised you haven't heard of me." However, Belle just looked at him confused. "Well, I don't even know who you are, and is there a reason why I should know this familia?" The Paolum lost his composure for a second, but quickly got it back. "Yes, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Finn Dame. What is yours?" "Mine is Belle Cranel. Nice to meet ya." "Likewise, so I think you should head back to the entrance of the dungeon." With Finn thinking, how did I not notice his presence once he came onto this floor? But once I was standing right next to him, I noticed that Belle wasn't an ordinary adventurer. However, that's when said boy looked at him and smiled. "Well, this is my first time being in a dungeon, so this is kind of new to me. Right now I just feel let down though, because I thought this would be more of a challenge." As he says this, he put his sword over his shoulder and Finn noticed the odd symbol on the side of his sword. He got a glance of some sort of shape within a circle. He bit his thumb and was thinking, where did he see that symbol, or if he ever did? And Belle glanced at him and shrugged, making his way onto the 10th floor, and right when he made it onto said floor, the first thing he noticed was the mist. With him thinking, it will be hard to see where the monsters will come from, but it should be fine. He kept walking straight, and that's when he made it to an open area. Belle walked into the open area and heard a monster roar at him. Our protagonist turned around and noticed multiple orcs coming towards him with weapons that varies. They probably got those from low-level adventurers, Belle thought. He then dodged a swing from one of the orcs, and in the same moment he swung his blade at the neck of the monster and the body quickly vanished and left a magic core. He jumped away from the orcs and got a look of how many there were. Alright, there's about 20 or so. Belle was about to land, but that's when he noticed in the mist something light up. Following his instincts, he dodged out of the way last second, and just as he thought that fire attack was aimed at him, he turned around and noticed small-looking dragon things. Why does this feel nostalgic or something? He shook his head and noticed orcs rushing at him. Well, this is going to be tricky, he muttered, but nonetheless he got into a stance and rushed at the orcs. When he was in front of the monsters, multiple of them swung their club at Bell, but he parried the blow and jumped up in front of the three and killed all three of them with a single slash. He glanced behind him and grinned. That's when another orc appeared in front of him and Bell dodged to the side and a fireball hit the monster instead of him. Capitalizing on this, Bell tried to finish the monster off, but on his side another orc took a swing at Bell with his club, which hit him on his stomach and made him fall back a bit, but he was able to catch himself, and that's when he noticed the monsters all rushing towards him. Bell just sighed and pointed his blade to the air, and that's when lighting appeared around his blade once again. Bell Lark. His lighting attack hit all of the nearby monsters, and all of them vanished, leaving only magic cores. Bell sighed. Well, I think I've been in here too long, so I will just go to floor 11 and make my way back to the surface. But now we skip to 15 minutes later when Bell was out of the dungeon. He sighed and thought back to when he made it to the 11th floor, like on the 10th floor the monsters had surrounded him. But Bell, having enough of that, used his lightning attack once again, but he disintegrated the monsters along with the magic stones. Bell was able to get a lot of the drops, but now he learned to not just fry everything. But he made his way to the guild for adventurers, and Ina was waiting for him. She smiled at Bell and walked inside the guild, with our protagonist following shortly behind her. Now sitting across from one another, that's when Ina spoke up. So you're telling me you went to the 11th floor by yourself and fought a minotaur on floor 5? Yeah, but in my defense, I didn't think a minotaur would be on that floor. The elf sighed and spoke once again. Well, just cash out your magic stones, and next time don't go into the middle floors unless you have a party. Bell saluted and handed her a bag. Inside the bag were about 100 magic stones. She looked at the bag and back at Bell. You are just a level 1, right? Yeah, I am. Why do you ask? Ina sighed and counted up the stones and told him she will be right back, and about 2 minutes later she handed Bell 200,000 Valis. Bell grabbed the money and looked at her, and Ina spoke up. In a serious tone, listen, I don't want you to go into the middle floors unless you have a party. Do I make myself clear? Bell got up and looked at her. No promises. As Bell said this, he smiled at her, and as he said that, he walked towards the exit of the guild. All the while Ina sighed and muttered, well, I hope you listen to me. When Bell was on his way home, he walked down a street that was next to a tavern. As he passed by, he felt someone's eyes were on him. He quickly turned around and saw that no one was there. Must have been my imagination, but as he turned back around, someone was standing right there. Bell jumped back. Oh, what the fuck? The girl giggled and spoke. Hi there, I'm sorry for scaring you like that. My name is Seer. Oh well, I'm Bell, and you shouldn't scare people like that. That's when Seer went close to Bell and smiled at him. I know it was my fault, but as an apology, do you want to eat here tomorrow night? Bell looked at her wearily. Sure, I don't see why not. I will be here on my way back from the dungeon. Oh, so you're an adventurer? Yeah, I haven't been one for very long, he muttered. How, what do you mean by that? She tilted her head to the side. Our protagonist chuckled. Well, I only been in Orario for about a week, so I only recently became an adventurer. Oh, okay, well, I wish you luck. She gave him a small smile and ran inside. Bell glanced at her and thought to himself, is she a goddess or just a normal girl? He just sighed and started to walk home once again. When he was in front of said home, he walked inside, and once he opened the door, that's when he heard his goddess. Bell. She jumped at him and gave him a hug. All the while Bell chuckled and patted her head. What did you think, I was going to die or something? Oh, and here he pulled out the Valis from his pocket and handed it to Hestia. Now keep this until we have enough to get a house, because we are living in an abandoned church. Okay, I will ask Hephaestus if she could help. Bell just nodded and yawned. Well, I'm gonna head to sleep. I'm going to the dungeon in the morning. As he said this, he walked over to the couch and dozed off. But once Bell awoke, he felt something on him. Bell looked down and saw Hestia laying down on top of him. Bell smiled at his goddess, but flicked her forehead, which promptly woke her up. She held her forehead and pouted at Bell. Now why did you do that? Isn't there a bed right there? As he says this, he points to his side. Hestia looked at the bed and back at Bell. Well, I must have slept, walked into the couch. Do you really think I would believe that? He just sighed. Well, can you check my status? I want to see how much I improved. Sure, just go on the bed. He took off his shirt and laid down onto the bed. Hestia went on top of him and put her blood on his back. A white glow then happened and his status appeared. Hestia looked at the numbers in shock, with her thinking. He only been to the dungeon once and everything increased. She glanced down at his skills and noticed he has too. She smiled softly with her thinking, well, at least now you have skills. But that's when Belle interrupted her. Goddess, can I see my status? Oh right, she put a paper on his back and got up from Belle and handed him said paper. They're at red dexterity, 750 rank B. Agility 850 rank A. Magic 950 rank S. Endurance 989 rank S. And his first skill is King's Power. With this skill he has several djinns that can be placed onto anything related to metal, which would make it a metal vessel. However, he would only unlock those djinns the more he grows in power, and his second one will be a mystery for now. But side note, I didn't really know how to implement djinns into Danmachi, so this is the best I came up with, but he had ball from when he was with his grandfather. Anyways, back to the story. Belle made his way to the dungeon. It was still early morning, so he would be one of the first adventurers there. With him thinking I want to test something out, he glanced at his sword and it lit up in a golden color. Ball, do you think I am ready for it? In response, the glow increased for a second and Belle grinned. Alright, well, I will take that as a yes. He was now in front of the dungeon and he turned to his side and noticed that some members of the Loki familia were entering as well. But Belle just sighed and walked into the dungeon. Alright, he pulled his sword out and slayed any monsters that were dumb enough to challenge him. And about 10 minutes later he made his way onto floor 12. Well, that felt easier than last time, but he walked down the path, but noticed the orcs and silverbacks. Belle looked at the silverback, which is a large monkey monster that is covered in white fur with silver fur down the middle. Said monster rushed at Belle and threw a punch to the ground which cracked it and sent a small shockwave to Belle. Oh, so they are just really strong. He rushed towards the monster and cut one of its arms off. The monster looked at the severed arm and picked it up. What are you gonna do with that? He had to dodge out of the way from said arm being launched at him. But some of the blood smeared onto his eyes which temporarily blinded him, and in that moment the monster punched him, which sent him flying to the orc, who in turn smashed Belle into the ground. Said boy coughed a bit. While that was interesting, he got up and rushed at the monster with blinding speed. He appeared to the side of the silver back and swung his blade through the monster, cutting it in half. Belle looked at the big crystal that dropped from the monster. I am not carrying that thing back to the surface. He kicked the crystal and immediately regretted it. Ow, why the foo? Belle got cut off by the orc, which attacked him with the club. Well, I forgot about you, Belle muttered. Our protagonist pointed his blade at the monster and lightning quickly engulfed the monster, and Belle was on his way to the 13th floor. All the while holding his face and limping a bit. Once he made it onto floor 13 he was lost. Why is this thing a maze? He sighed and took another turn and fell down one of the random holes. Why am I such an idiot? He muttered. He noticed the ground beneath him and quickly braced himself. Belle landed on the ground with a huge thud and he quickly got up. Alright, well, that was something. He looked up and wondered what floor he was on now. He noticed he was in a big room and looked to one of the walls. Is that the Great Wall of Sorrow? So that means I am on floor 17. Our protagonist grinned and noticed said wall collapsing. Well, this only means that this is a floor boss. Belle grins and points his blade towards the ground. At the same time, the wall completely crumbled and you could hear a loud roar, and not a moment after a big creature appeared. So that's Goliath. Well, I'll show you something interesting. The floor boss noticed Belle and started to walk towards him. All the while Belle spoke up. My servant of rage and greatness, take shelter within me. As he says this, the tip of his blade glows bright blue and his body begins to change. Transform my whole body into that of a great sorcerer. Lightning appeared around Belle's body and he looked at the beast and pointed his sword at it. Belle shouted, Bararak Psycha. After he shouted that, a massive attack got sent towards Goliath, in which it completely disintegrated it. Bell grinned, but that grin quickly faltered when his attack went beyond the dungeon. Once the smoke cleared, he was shocked. "Oh, I think I went a little overboard," he muttered. "I didn't mean to use that much power." There was no trace of Goliath or his magic core. Along with that, Bell had opened up a big hole on the side of the dungeon. He could see the city of Orario from inside the dungeon, but Bell was now panicking. "Maybe I could make a wall out of big rocks or something. I hope no one noticed that big blast I just did. Everyone will notice an attack that big." And he was right, everyone noticed Bell's Bararak Psycha. He not only shook the dungeon, but it could be felt throughout Orario. You can even hear the massive attack, and the gods were the only ones who noticed the massive hole on the side of the dungeon. After about 3 minutes, Bell noticed that the wall of the dungeon was repairing itself. At first it was going slowly, but in no time the wall was completely repaired, which Bell sighed in relief. He glanced at the exit on his floor and walked towards it. "Well, I think that's the 18th floor. That should be a safe point." With Bell muttering, "I will just rest here for a bit and make my way back to the surface once I rested." Little did our protagonist know a goddess watched Bell's journey into the dungeon and watched the fight between the floor boss. With her thinking, "I want him," she looked behind her at Otter. Otter is tall and heavily muscular with rust-colored hair and eyes, along with that a pair of warriors. He wears a dark blue sleeveless top with a red pectoral part with a collar-like part, gray pants, and brown and gray shoes. His weapon is a great sword with a one-sided blade. "You are going to make a trip into the dungeon very soon. I want to see more of this boy's strength." Otter glanced at the crystal ball and nodded. Back with our protagonist. He was now in floor 18. He had tripped and fell onto this floor face first, but he was walking around. "I kind of like this. The forest looks nice." Bell glanced up and noticed the white crystals that resembles the sun. "Oh, so that's why it looks like this even though we're in a dungeon." Bell also noticed a lake and a town. "I wonder what they sell." He made his way to the city of Riveria. Once he was in front of said city, there were a lot of adventurers there. Our protagonist walked through the city and looked at what the people were selling. "Okay, why are they selling perfume inside a dungeon?" He just shook his head and walked over to one of the stands and bought something to drink. The people around Bell glanced at him, with some of them muttering, "Is he just a level 1 or something?" Because he wasn't wearing any armor and just had a sword on his side. However, he didn't really care, and Bell just walked out of the city towards the cliff. He wanted to see the view of the whole forest. As he was walking to the cliff, he noticed someone was following him. Bell gripped his sword and turned around. There standing behind him was Ace. He relaxed a bit but looked at her confused. "I didn't expect to meet you on this floor." "Neither did I, since I thought you were just a level 1. I am a level 1, I'm just stronger than normal." Ace just slowly nodded and walked to the side of Bell. "Well, what do you think of this floor? Do you like it?" Bell made his way to the cliff once again, but he spoke up. "Yeah, I'm surprised there are a lot of adventurers here though." As he says this, he points at the city behind him. Ace nodded. "Well, a lot of level 2s would use that city as a place to rest or to live for a couple of months, then they would make their way back to the surface." "But how long will you be here?" They were now at the side of the cliff and Bell sat down at the edge with Ace sitting right next to him. "I was going to stay here for an hour and make my way back to the surface." All the while someone noticed the two and quickly got jealous because he liked Ace. He was about to interrupt them, but that's when someone got his attention. He turned around and noticed Finn. "Why are you stopping me? I want to know who that brat is." However, Finn just shook his head. "Don't, because if you get on his bad side." He looked at Bet with an intense gaze. "I don't think you will be able to win." At this he scoffed. "Do you think I would lose to a level 1? I am not gonna lose to that weakling. I'm a level 6. However, Finn cut him off. "You remember that shockwave we felt before entering this floor?" Bet looked at him confused. "And what does that have anything to do with him?" "That's the point, but this is just a hunch. He was the one to defeat Goliath, and since he is by himself, what does that suggest?" Bet looked shocked and turned back around and noticed that Bell turned around and had locked eyes with him. So he was able to beat a floor boss by himself. He just turned around and walked away. "I don't believe he did. That kid doesn't look all that strong." But that is the end of this part. If you enjoyed this part, leave a like and subscribe. Also tell me in the comments on how this part had came out, because I was having trouble creating this story, but I hope I did good.